All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Growth by Shawn podcast. I am here with Michelle Simmons today, or Mama Simmons, if you would prefer that. So, how you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing well. How are you, Shawn?
I'm doing great. So, here's how I think would be the most interesting way to start the podcast today. If I had asked you, who are you? Explain to me who Michelle is 30 years ago. How do you think you would have answered?
Okay, so I'm 49.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind saying
Okay,
how old
20 years ago. 20 years ago.
That's it. I'm 49. See, when I was 19, I didn't really want to talk about that part. Um, but when I was 30, what was I doing when I was? That's about the time that I moved to Hawaii. So I'm living in Hawaii now. Um, Gosh, that's a great question. I I I had no idea that I would be doing what I'm doing now. We'll put it that
Mm,
way. You know,
okay.
the twists and turns that life has gone through. I graduated college with a degree in education, and I was a teacher, a classroom school teacher for 5 years, and loved that job. And I felt like I was good at it. I felt like I was doing a service to society, like working with
Hmm.
kids. And then I got laid off, unfortunately, and it was a budget cut decision. I was a first year teacher at a school where I don't know, a budget something or other didn't pass, and they're like, well, okay, we'll just lay off all the first year teachers. So it was my 5th year teaching, but my first year at that particular school. And I was like, are you kidding? That set me off on a trajectory of wanting to be appreciated for the work that I did, because in my mind I was like, I'm good at teaching, but in this decision they weren't looking at who's providing the best service or
Hmm.
value, or who's doing the best job. It was simply like, how long have you been here? And there was a feeling of, that's not cool to me, I want to be rewarded for the work that I'm doing, or at least recognized for that. So and I was like, unfortunately, teachers don't make that much money. And I was like, I'm basically volunteering my time. And then you decided you can't even pay me the pennies that you were paying me. And at the time I had a friend who was working in pharmaceutical sales, and he was like, if you want to get paid, and you're good at sales, like get into
Hmm.
pharma sales. So I interviewed with a company. They happened to hire me. I managed to, in the interview, um, use my education experience to say, like, that even though I'd never had a sales job before, it was like,
Hmm.
you can list out, like, here's how I educate, kids and test for understanding and all of that. I can do the same, with doctors in a doctor's office. And they hired me, which I was surprised about, but
Hmm.
that was cool. So back to your question of 20 years ago, that's what I was doing 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because it didn't feel like a valuable, like when I was teaching, I felt like I'm contributing in a valuable way. And when I was in pharmaceutical sales, I'm like, I see so much waste, like money waste, financial waste. I didn't really see the fraud necessarily. And I say the fraud, like I didn't see the fraud that maybe people on the outside of the pharma industry see, but I did see waste. I did see that, like, this is pointless. And it was hard because they were paying me so much money. Like, I
Hmm.
literally tripled my income from teaching to do this job, that I was like, it's not even valuable. But here I am. And so anyway, it was another set of layoffs that ended up getting me
Oh.
out of pharma sales.
Hmm.
Well, pharma sales is ultimately what brought me to Hawaii. And when I got moved here, it was for like a promotion position that they, put me in here within the companies. Like, that was all cool. My plan was still, I was going to be on the corporate ladder. Like, I'm going to be there for 3 years. I'll do a great job. I'll get myself promoted. They'll move me back to the mainland. I'll go to corporate. I'll, train to become a manager. And like, I was going to do the corporate ladder thing. And then again, it was a company wide, somebody at corporate somewhere was looking at positions up. We don't need that position anymore. And they laid me off. At the time, I'd been here already for 5 years. I decided I wasn't moving. I met my husband. I loved it here. I'm like, I want to stay.
Hmm.
Um, and when I got laid off from the pharma sales, I was 6 months pregnant. So I was like, what do I do? Like, who's gonna hire me now? Right. So, but you know, like luckily at the time, like I was married, my husband had a good job with health insurance, and so he's like, you know what, just stay home with, you know, our daughter, stay home, you know, enjoy the rest of your pregnancy, stay home for a while, you know. And so it really ultimately worked out really well. So it was disappointing when I look back on those times where I thought I knew where my life was going, and then through no, like, I don't know, choice or decision of my own, somebody else decided for me, this is
Hmm.
changing. And so both of those layoffs were highly disappointing, and both of them were like the best thing that could have happened to me. Right, because you know, they put me on a different course, or put me on the course that I'm on now. So after I gave birth to my daughter, at the time I was an endurance athlete, I was a triathlete, had been for a long time, and I'm not even really sure why, but I just decided, like, well, I'll start coaching triathletes. Like, I know
Hmm.
enough about this. I've been doing it at this point longer than most people. I started doing triathlon in 1995, like straight out of college. Um, so like I knew, I didn't know as much as I know now, but I knew more than most other people at the time. This is like 15 years ago. So I was like, sure, I'll just start coaching triathlon. And as soon as I announced it, like 5 of my friends jumped on. I'm like, hey, yeah, because I was doing it for almost free, because I was like,
Hmm.
look, I don't know if I'm good at this. Like, we'll find out. Um, and and it turned out I was, right.
Hmm.
I ended up loving it. So, you know, back to your question, who are you 20 years ago? I mean, 20 years ago, I was still climbing the corporate ladder, but knowing that it wasn't the right thing for me, right? Like, the only thing about that job was the freedom and the money. And it was not satisfying, because I didn't really feel like I was helping people. And so
Hmm.
now that I'm in a job where I'm coaching, so I started my coaching business 15 years ago, really on a whim.
Hmm.
And then, but I was in a really good position, because I I don't want to say we didn't need the money, but I wasn't in a position where it's like, I have to make this work. I have to fast track this to grow as fast as I can. It was none of that. It was more like, I can just let it grow organically. And then, like, as more and more athletes came on, you know, the reputation, we live in Hawaii, it's a small island here.
Hmm.
Reputation is a great thing. But as it grew, I I didn't feel like I had to force anything. It was all just like natural organic growth. And
Hmm.
that was the best thing. And then as I gained confidence, like as I saw that my athletes are doing well, they're happy, they're healthy, they're performing well, then like as new ones would come on, just little by little, I would raise my price up to more of what I thought I was worth. And then it just became this great job that I get to do, where I got to, you know, race triathlon myself and help other people achieve their goals. Everything about that felt and still feels really good to me. I have my own schedule at this point. My daughter's 14. Like, you know, she's grown up around triathlon and endurance athletes. And um, so, yeah, 20 years ago, I was trying to figure out, how do I get back to helping people? And
Hmm.
now here I am.
So when you had first started um, coaching people for triathlons and endurance events, what made it so that you got the best results? Was it your experience, your programming, the way you were able to talk with people? What was it that made it so impactful for your athletes?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of triathlon coaches out there, and there's a lot of information out there as far as what kind of training you should do. And, you know, if you want to look this up and get all the information for free, because you have a lot of time that you want to spend on YouTube and listening to podcasts and reading books and reading journals and all of that, like, you could learn everything that I've learned, because I've
Mhm.
learned all of what I know from other people who have been there before, done it before me, and along the way, you know, watching how athletes respond to training, what works and what doesn't.
Mhm.
But the thing for sure that people are paying for is not the programming.
Mhm.
I mean, partly it's the programming,
Mhm.
but it is the relationship that we develop, right? Like, you
Mhm.
could get a book and have, here's a 12-week program or an 18-week program, and you could do it much, much cheaper than what people are paying for an individual one-on-one coach at this point. But what I provide is the relationship. Like I get to know you. And so you could read a program out of the back of the book, but depending on your physiology and like where you are, like those are generic kind of like, maybe it sort of gets you there, but you don't know if the feelings you're feeling are the right ones. Like, is this how it should feel? And I'm the one that's like, no, that's not how it should feel. You should slow way down. Or like, yes, this one should feel hard. And then I can answer all the individual questions about how should I be fueling this? And how should I be pacing this? And I'm looking at their files, their heart rate, their power, the pace, all that stuff. And then I get a sense for like, what exactly do they need individually? So the main thing that is most helpful for athletes is having someone who with the experience that I've at this point 15 years doing this, and then saying, this is the direction that you need to go. And then when they are questioning it or they're not sure, I'm like, I'm positive. I promise you. And they know that I'm on their side. You know, like when I like at this point, it's funny too, right? Because like I have some younger gals that are in their 20s, and I'm like, I'm literally Mama Simmons to them. Like I could literally be your mother. Like if I would have had kids at a younger age than what I did. And it's cute because like they'll call me mom, you know, and I like gather them around and feel like, yes. And I truly like, because I'm a helper at heart, like it's what I want you to do well. I'm able to convey to them that like, I promise you, I have your best interest at heart here. And so when you're doing something that feels like against your natural instinct, people's natural instinct is to go out and work about as hard as they can every day. And for endurance work, for what we're trying to do, that's appropriate sometimes, but it's certainly not appropriate every time. So commonly my job is like to rein people in, be like, slow down, nope, go easier, slow it down, you know, and convincing them that that's the right way. And then after a couple of months, when they start feeling their own improvement, they're like, oh, this feels so much better. I'm like, I know, I got you. So yeah, it's the relationship part of like having someone who gets to know you, you have a teammate. Endurance sport can feel very like a solo endurance, you know, like you're out there on your own, but to know that there's somebody in your corner cheering for you and has your best interests at heart and is going to give you the strategy and advice based on like, because I'll get to know my athletes, like which ones are great at pacing, which ones take off and go really fast in the beginning and then start to die, right? And I'll see that in their files. And maybe I'm not saying that to them right away, but then I'll start programming in, you know, every run for you is going to be a progression run because we're going to break that habit of you starting out too fast every time. Gotcha. So yeah, it's the one-on-one. I get to know them as individuals. And that's why I'm limited in the amount of triathletes I can coach too, because I don't just write generic programs for everyone. It's like, what does this athlete in particular need to develop? And then we have to go that direction.
So building these relationships with athletes, where is the line for you between creating a bond and creating a boundary?
Ooh, okay. So I used to suck at this.
Okay.
I've gotten much better at this. So I remember in my first couple of years coaching, because like triathlon for me has always been a passion. Like I just love it. And I still do. Like I follow the sport at the professional level. I do, you know, like if there's anything triathlon related going on in the world, I know about it because I've just made it my job basically to follow it. And it doesn't feel like a job because I love it. But most of the athletes that I coach, like they're amateur athletes. They have lives, they have jobs, they have kids, they have families. Like they're doing this for like, pick a reason. There's lots of reasons. That reason matters. But one thing I really learned was that, like, boy, I can't care more than the athlete does. Okay. Right. So yeah. Like, so it's on me. The boundary part is on me to go, okay, I need to know how important triathlon is to you. Because however important it is to you, that's how important it will be to me. And then as far as like the boundary between friendship goes, that I mean, that's a great question. I'm not sure I've really thought about it, but I would say that I follow the lead of the athlete on that. And when an athlete is letting me in, I walk right in. And I've become really good friends with some of my athletes. And then there's other athletes that I don't feel like I know as well because they use me specifically as a triathlon coach. Like, just tell me what I need to do with swim, bike, run, and fueling and sleeping or whatever. But they never tell me a lot of other personal things. And then there's other athletes who, I think they like it that I'm interested in their lives. And so then they tell me stuff and then we become quite close. I mean, close to the point where during the pandemic, when we were all limited, like with how many groups, how many people you could get together. I mean, for a while in Hawaii, it was ridiculous. It was like 5 people at any gathering, right? So like, who can have a wedding? Because you got 5 people. Well, like 2 of my athletes were getting married to each other. And they're like, we want you. We both decided that like, we're allowed to have 3 other people there. One of them is her mom. And they're like, if you can be our officiant, right? Then that like knocks that part out. And so like, I share that story mostly because like we became such good friends that I literally officiated their wedding. So in some cases, like maybe there's not really a boundary, right?
Okay.
But it's different per athlete. And I would say that I never inject myself in the athlete's life, but if the athlete wants to let me in, like I like having friends,
Yeah.
and I can work with them professionally just as well, maybe even better. Like the better I know them, because so much of it is mental. And so the ones who don't really let me in, I'm like, how are you feeling? Because there's more to it than like, what was your heart rate? Or like, your heart rate was high today. I can tell it's high. That's normally not that high. What's going on? And if somebody writes me back and they tell me about exactly all the stress that's going on with, their mom who's visiting in town this week and the drama of that, past relationship, that is super helpful for me versus another athlete's like, I just have a lot of stress going on right now.
How are you able to get someone to open up about that stress? In terms of, a lot of people just think stress is in, okay, I had a stressful day at work, but they're not able to pinpoint specific things that happened during that day. What types of questions are you asking athletes in order to get them more specific about the stress that's actually impacting them?
Well, okay, so I run, I have a private Facebook page that's for everybody that's on there. And there's times when I am writing a note to someone specifically, right? So here's an athlete who has an issue, has a problem with something, and I'm writing, like, I take a lot of time, I'll write out this long drawn out explanation of, could be this, could be this, could be this, like, take a look at these things. And I'm being very broad and general about what those things are. And then when I read it back to myself, I'm like, everybody needs to know this, right? So at that point, I'll copy that and I'll paste it onto the team page and just, hey, everybody, I thought you might want, all this information because we're all humans and this applies to all of us. So we have talked a lot about life stress. I did a whole, I don't know, I'll let you say, like, when I'm learning about a new concept of anything, I dive in feet first. I mean, both feet, like I learn everything I can about it. And then, as we know, that the best way to really learn something is to teach it. So half the time when I'm teaching something for the first time, it's really because like I'm trying to solidify my own learning of it. And like I'll have training partners that sometimes I'm like, just humor me. I know you don't care about this at all, but I need to solidify it for myself. So I'm going to teach it to you right now. And I know you don't care, but I'm going to teach it to you anyway. Thank you for listening. So one of the things that I targeted because I wanted to understand better, I thought I could be a better coach, was looking at HRV, which is heart rate variability. And it's a metric. And then so you can see like my ring here, like I'm wearing an Oura ring. So it's a trend that some athletes are, when we're watching our internal physiology, you'll wear like an Oura ring or a Whoop band, or Garmin tries to do it, Apple Watch tries to do it. There's an app on your phone that can do it. But when we're measuring that, like what HRV is showing us is sort of the state of your nervous system. Like, where's your nervous system at? And so you can learn this baseline of like, this is when things are normal for me, things are going well. Your heart rate variability, that's essentially the like the time between heartbeats. And there's special technology that can measure this. So when you get to know your baseline, and you go, yep, everything's good. And when HRV is good, the chances of you having a good, training session that day are high. And the thing about HRV is that it is sensitive, but not specific, meaning that it picks up on stress from any cause. So so one thing that I'm imparting on my athletes a lot is the physical work that we're doing is stressful, but also fighting with your husband is stressful. Also, when your boss comes into town to like watch you work this week, or you have like some important meeting, that's stressful. When your kid broke his arm because he fell out of the tree, whatever, right? That's stressful. And our bodies don't decipher the difference. Most of the time, I have athletes that try to power through all that and just do the hard workout anyway. And that's a mistake. And I didn't know that a decade ago. I didn't know that. And that is maybe part of my growth as a coach of like, how have I gotten better, is that I've realized, okay, in order to do this key workout and benefit from it, which is the goal, you don't want to just do the workout, you want to benefit from it by adapting to it, recovering from it. You need to be in a good space going in. And when you're in a good space going in, and then you execute it well, your body will adapt, respond, get stronger. But if you're like in the gutter going in, and then you force yourself like to just do it, because I'm going to be hard-headed about it, then like if you're in a hole, what you're doing is you're just digging the hole deeper. Right? So now like after the workout, instead of getting stronger, you've dug the hole deeper. And that's something that I feel like in a big picture way, I've taught to my athletes. I've given them examples of all the things that, that count as stresses, and our bodies don't know the difference. And our heart is telling us if we're willing to listen. So one of the things that I've really, one of my, like you call it like a growth by Shawn, or like growth, my coach growthing, my Mama Simmons growth, has been to really understand how our bodies are communicating with us all the time. And it is up to us to listen. And when we use our body, when we think of ourselves as being on the same team as your body, so I'm going to work with my body today. What's my body ready to do? Is it ready to work hard? Great, go work hard. Is it not ready to work hard? Great, rest, go easy, go for a walk, go as slow as you can on that bike ride. Easy, easy, easy. Wait till you're in a good spot. And I'll try to teach the athletes those things. Sometimes it's not up to me. Commonly, it's not up to me to tell them where the stress is in their life. All I can do is prompt them on that to be like, could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be that? And then I'd let them do it. If they want to bring me in deeper on that conversation, some of them do. They'll ask me more, and then I'll contribute, and I'll be asking them questions. What else could you be doing about that? And usually that's it. Like when they say, I know what I need to do. Great, tell me more. What do you need to do? And then hear what they have to say. Usually it's like sleep. I mean, I deal with a lot of women who we'll call it, for a better phrase, like are afraid of food. Like, I gain weight, so I'm going to not feel this workout. And it's like trying to help them understand that, like, if you're going to be a teammate with your body, like giving your body the resources that it needs to perform the way you're asking it to perform, really important. But yeah, the questions are very individual per athlete. And again, some of them don't ever tell me. And in those cases, like you talk about the boundary, like where I have to learn, is it like, what's my role with them? Like as a triathlon coach, like if they hired me as a mindset coach, let's dive into all of that. And I'm going to press. As a triathlon coach, I don't press on that. If I'm going to stick in my role, and my role is swim, bike, run training. I'll prompt you on your sleep. I'll prompt you on your life stress. I'll prompt you on your training, or on your nutrition, hydration, that kind of thing. If they don't want to let me in, and I learned this a while back, like I'm not getting paid enough as a triathlon coach to also be their therapist. And it's not my role in that place, right? So I'm like, I'll just look at your life for stress, and then it's on you to figure it out. Like, you might have to go a different direction on that, because it's not my role as a triathlon coach.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think that a lot of people will resonate with that, in terms of, I am your coach, but at the same time, don't just throw all your shit on me as well. There is a fine line between this is something that's stressful for me, as opposed to I just want to bitch and complain about this and want you to listen to me.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that you brought up worth as a coach again. You've said this 2 or 3 times now, and I'm very interested. When you say worth as a coach, it can be monetarily or just how you view yourself as a coach. Were there some defining moments for you where specific defining moments where you thought, wow, I am worth more than this. I'm going to up my prices. Wow, I'm worth more than this. I'm going to XYZ.
A great question. I've been told for a decade that I don't charge enough.
Okay.
And this is my own deal. I know this is
Mm-hmm.
my own. And part of it is that I don't want, because what we talked about in the beginning, like I'd like to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to be like, oh, I can only help people who have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like in my mind, I'm
Yep.
like, people are people. And like, I want to be able to help you, even if you don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, and can afford, hundreds of dollars a month on a coach. That said, so for a decade, I didn't raise my prices.
Mm-hmm.
Just this year, at the beginning of 2023, I finally did a little bit. Like, I think I'm still underpriced as compared to like what some of my peers are charging. Like, so, as I have peers who've been coaching triathlon for a long time, and we talk sometimes. I'm like, what do you charge? I think they all
Mm-hmm.
charge more than me. I'm like, okay, all right, I got to just like decide. And the thing is, as soon as I decided I'm going to charge a little bit more, like that's on me, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then say your price, and I haven't had a single person say like balking on that and saying, oh, that's too much. So I'm like, okay, I could probably still go up. But it's interesting that I don't want to, because I don't want triathlon to be inaccessible for people,
Mm-hmm.
for like
Okay.
everyday people. Like, I believe that this is a life-changing thing. And so I'm I have an issue with the money part, because I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I love helping people. I don't want to price people out of this. I want people to stay with me for the long term, and they do. Like, I've had athletes that I've been coaching for a decade now. They just don't
Mm-hmm.
leave. And I feel like if I price myself in a way where my primary focus is making money, maybe there's a way to do it. Like, there's coaches who charge a ton and still really care about their athletes. I suppose that's probably possible. I have paid more. I've hired my own coaches to
Mm-hmm.
coach me, and I've paid more than I charge. And I've been like, they don't do the job that I do. Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
not paying attention like I am. They're not like, I just really felt like it wasn't worth it to me. And I ended up ultimately not staying, with those coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't I think I have a fear, and this is my own personal fear, is that
Mm-hmm.
like, if I decide to make this, like, I'm going to make as much money as I can off my triathlon coaching, that I lose what makes me a good triathlon coach, which is like that I care about my people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. Can you do both? I bet you can. I'm sure there's people out there that are doing both. That's my own personal growth journey
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to. But I would say what's interesting is that like this year, when I did finally increase my price, I thought, I understand how this is better, because I feel like the value I need to deliver to these athletes that are paying me a lot is high. Like, I am
Mm-hmm.
highly motivated to make sure that I'm worth it if you're going to pay me this much. And I think that's good, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that's going to increase the job that I do is going to be better. And then they also value it, right? So when you're too underpriced, then it's like, the worst thing for me as a coach is when I know my athletes are only like half-ass following what I'm doing.
Yep.
That is the least satisfying thing, because I lose the vested interest that I have in their performances when, like, I write out the program, they do it half-ass, or they look at it and they use it as a rough guide and then go out and do whatever they want anyway. And I look at it and I'm like, not like, and they don't understand the physiology, and I'll try again. Let me try to explain this to you again, like why we're doing things the way that we're doing. And
Mhm.
then they still, yeah, they're like, yep. And then they go do their thing anyway. And they're like, oh, and I'm thinking maybe if I did charge more, everyone would be like, I need to listen to every word she says.
Yeah.
Like that might be the better way, is like, all right, charge what you're worth so that they actually do what you say, and then everybody wins. Because
Yeah.
like when you do the training program properly, the chances of you succeeding are way higher than if you're like, oh, I sort of read what you wrote, but I felt good today, so I pushed harder.
Mhm.
Like, okay.
What do you think is the main underlying reason of, even when someone pays you, why they don't follow what you say?
That's another good question. Some of them have been doing triathlon for a really long time,
Mhm.
and they feel like, I know what worked for me in the past, and so I just want to do that.
Okay.
And as someone who understands physiology, you understand that like if you just keep doing the same thing you've been doing, the ceiling on your ability to progress is stalled out.
Mhm.
Right. So like we have to go back and change it up. And how do we change it up? I mean, it kind of depends. Like, well, what have you been doing in the past? Right. Like how have you developed your physiology before? Where's the gap between like what you want to do? The no pain, no gain mentality is really hard to break. So the hardest thing that or like the way that most of the time athletes don't do what I say is that they go longer and they go harder than
Mhm.
what I'm asking them to do. And so they're imparting more stress on their body, which then requires more recovery time, but they're bullheaded. And I don't care about the other stress that's going on in my life, and like I'm looking at their files and I'm seeing it in their heart rate, and I'm like, oh my God, like how do I get them to slow down? Like I got and then I'm like just trying different ways of like, maybe if I explain it this way, and like maybe if I do this, maybe if I do, I'm trying all these different things to try to get them, to listen. And then other times it's like I have to just sit back, and I don't want to say like let them fail, but like I've explained this to you. You're doing what you want to do anyway. We've both acknowledged that you're doing what you want to do anyway. I've told you why I think that's not going to work for you, and you're insisting that it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Eat a lot then, because like that's a lot of stress. Like I hope you're sleeping well at night, like all these things. And I'm thinking at some point, like people have to learn their own lessons.
Mm.
And so it's interesting that I used to think that my skill set was best applied to people who had experience and wanted, like, we're already pretty good but wanted to reach the next level. I thought, I
Mhm.
know how to do that. I can help people do that. You're pretty good, you have some experience, you're not starting from scratch, you want to be the best you can be. I got you. And I still believe that.
Mhm.
But sometimes those same athletes are the ones that were like, but I was good before, and they're still stuck in the past of like how good I used to be, and
Mhm.
I want to be that good again. And like, I get it. I've been there. I know what that feels like. There's a degree of letting go that needs to take place before we can go and reach forward. What's interesting is that recently I've started taking on some newer athletes, like athletes that I thought in the past, like if an athlete was brand new, I would be like, you don't need me.
Mhm.
Go to a beginner program or like some sort of group thing where you'll learn all the basics, do that for 2 or 3 years, and then if you like this, you want to do it more, come back to me and then I'll take you
Mhm.
from there. But I've taken on a couple athletes who are really green, like they know nothing, they're new.
Mhm.
I'm loving it. It's so great. Like, oh my God, like I could just mold you from the beginning. Like you don't have any preconceived notions about what this should be or how it should go. And I mean, I've been around long enough that, when they have issues of like, I'm looking to buy a new bike trainer, what should I get? I need a new heart rate monitor, what should I get? I'm like, I know it, like, yep, here's what you should do and here's why. And they know that I'm not trying to sell them anything. I don't make any money. I don't care which trainer they buy, really, but I want you to have a good one.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, working with athletes starting from the beginning, I'm finding out. It's funny because I used to think this is not my niche, and now I'm like, I love the beginners. They admit they know nothing, and so they just listen to me, and then they're like, they're 2 months in, and they're like, I feel so much better. I'm like, yeah, you do. There's a lot
Mhm.
more. Let's keep on this journey, and so that part's been surprisingly fun for
Yeah.
me.
Do you think that once you have that heart-to-heart conversation where you have athlete X, they're doing this, and you have you, this is what you want them to do. You've had the conversation of you're still not doing what we're looking to accomplish, and you're still stuck in the past. Is this where you're starting to incorporate more of the mindset component that you have been working on now?
Yeah, for the
Okay.
ones that are open to it. So I
Okay.
can sense who's open to it, who's ready for this, and who's not.
Okay.
And so when they're not, I don't offer it,
Hmm.
or like maybe I'll just throw it out there once and see, like, is there any sort of bite on that?
Hmm.
And if there isn't, like, I just absolutely don't press it, because I think
Hmm.
that there's so much work to be done on the mindset, and there's so many people that could benefit from that. And so, um, yeah, there are some people who are not ready to go there. And so this is a whole nother can of worms that I feel like, oh, I don't know, do we even want to go into this? But here's the thing. Endurance sport is a really interesting, when you're in it for a long time, and especially for lifelong endurance athletes, like
Hmm.
the ones that are doing 10, 12 Ironmans, like if they're doing 1 or 2 Ironmans every single year and have for the last decade. I was one of those.
Hmm.
Um, and so I can say we, because this definitely was
Yeah.
me, using sport as the outlet. I don't want to talk about my shit, Shawn. I'm just going to go out and blast myself on this run.
Hmm.
I come back and I'm so tired. I don't care anymore about that shit. I
Hmm.
let it go. I worked it out on the run. So I get that. And there are
Hmm.
athletes that are using, and I know which one of my athletes are using training for that purpose.
Yep.
Working them out of that is not super easy, right? Like, it's not,
Yep.
but those are the athletes that have a really hard time slowing down, because when they go as slow as their physiology needs them to go to gain the benefit that I'm trying to like help them gain in a physiology sense, it's not satisfying in the way of like, but this is my outlet.
Yeah.
I need to go out and sprint, and I need to go out and rip up that hill as hard as I can and come home exhausted, because that's my therapy.
Mm.
Like, maybe let's find a different, and like, look, I get it, because that was my therapy too. I mean, like,
Hmm.
my favorite feeling in the world was coming home from the hardest workout that I could make myself do, completely exhausted, and laying on the couch and just being like, ah, I'm too tired to even think. It's great, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
like and so I get it. And so I will bring an athlete's awareness to that at times. Like, if I think, I'll ask that question, like, um, tell me why does it feel better to you to go hard?
Hmm.
Like, why the ones that like really just want to let it out, it's my outlet, and they know that. They'll say, like, it's my outlet, it's how I express myself. Okay, fine. Maybe if we can, like, your physical improvement will be better if you find another way to have that outlet for stress,
Yeah.
right? Like, you can recognize the mental component of it. If you can write that story down, we can work through all of that. You can separate yourself from that, and
Hmm.
then you can use training for actual training. And then you can be satisfied with that really easy run that didn't even feel like you were really working that hard. And when you're there, the opportunity for growth is much wider, versus when they're just stuck and they're using it. But also at the same time, I get it, like that, like, I remember what that's like to, like, I just had a fight with somebody, and like, he pissed me off so much, and I'm just going to go out and let all the steam out on this run. And
Yeah.
like, but that's how athletes get hurt too. Like, every time, like, oh, I pulled my calf muscle, or like my back, I threw my back out, or whatever. I'm like, we found all the patterns with that too. Like, I'm a professional pattern seeker. Like,
Hmm.
where's the pattern here? Like, oh, you broke up with your girlfriend last week. Oh, and you threw your back out today. Like,
Hmm.
in his mind, that's unrelated, right? Like, he
Hmm.
never made that connection at all. I did, because I'm like, I've seen this pattern before, right? It's like, pick the stress, whatever the stress is that you're under. It plays itself out in a physical way wherever in your body is the weakest point. So with some
Mm,
people, like, they'll get their migraine. Some people have a tight neck. Some people have, it's their knee, it's the lower leg is a big one. Calves are big. They'll throw their back out. And it's different for different people. But with that same athlete, we'll see that pattern over and over.
I
Right. Like
see.
every
Yeah.
time. And I put this together with myself, like, oh, wait, I just had a fight with my husband and I went out and I pulled my calf. I mean, that happened 3 times in a row that I was
Wow.
out running, trying to just, like, let go of my stress. And I'm out running and I walk home because my calf went, you know, like, my body's going, find another way, Michelle.
Yeah. Yep.
Stop using me because you haven't figured out how to work out your stress. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, let me maybe be like a teammate with my body, treat my body right, find another
Mm,
way to work out my mental and emotional stress, and then end up physically performing in a satisfying way that feels good to me when I actually go to race. It's like, wow.
yeah. I'm sure that you see it more than anyone, just in terms of this, just because of how rigorous triathlons and endurance training is. There's a lot of people fighting a lot of demons that use this as an outlet or as therapy, as opposed to other modalities that are out there and possible. As
Mhm.
we start to wrap up here, we have one final question for you, a question from our last guest. Okay. Um, so this is from Alicia Rose. Okay. Good bartender friend of mine. And this will be a fun question for you. This is the first time seeing this for me, unfortunately. What is the most scandalous thing you have ever done?
Oh my gosh.
Alicia is quite the personality.
Right. Like, so, like, in what kind of, I mean, I feel like there's like different arenas of scandal, right?
There's
There's
whichever direction you want to go is mighty fine by me.
scandalous. I don't know, Shawn. Now I'm gonna feel like a loser because I can't answer this question. Like, I have a, like, scandalous. I don't think I do scandal. I'm trying to remember. So, like, I
Mhm,
have, like, in this, and the only reason I remember this is because it came up recently, and, like, your Facebook memories, like, if
mhm,
on Facebook and it pops up, and, like, I used to post on social media, Facebook, a lot more than I do now. There was some kind of memory that came up where I was celebrating, and at the time it was one of my athletes, and it was one that let me in, right? Like, so this is
mhm.
a one of, and ultimately one of my best friends. They were celebrating her birthday on, like, a tequila cruise, like on a boat out in Waikiki. And it was like a all you can drink tequilas like on a boat. It was a
Yeah.
birthday party, so, and we were adults. So we weren't like super crazy. I don't actually remember what I did, but I wrote something that she had a video of me doing it, because in the Facebook post it was like, we just went out and celebrated her birthday, and now she has a video that she can blackmail me with, but she's a really good friend of mine, so I know she won't. So I'm sure it was like me doing something really stupid drunk on this boat, but I can't even remember. And this is a genuine thing. Like, I can't remember
Mhm.
what it was.
Yep.
But I don't think I was naked. I
Okay.
doubt I was.
All right. Well, we that's
Right.
okay. That's probably we'll get points there. So yeah. But
How
all
to do
right.
with a tequila cruise.
Yeah, a tequila cruise pretty much sums it up. I
Mhm.
think if you're gonna do something scandalous, then tequila cruise is probably the place to do it.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the thing. So you got to cut me a little slack here, because, like,
mhm,
I've been married for 15 years.
yeah.
So in that time, like, like, look, do all your scandal shit when you're 20 something,
Mhm.
and then when you're 50 you, like, won't even remember, and you'll be like, well, actually, I feel bad for all of you who are still 20s now, because, like, social media is documenting all that. Like,
Mhm.
I'm of that generation where we're like, thank God, like, we didn't have any of that. Like,
Yeah.
nobody recorded any of the shit I did in high school or
Yep.
college.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm good. Like, I can run for president. You don't have shit on me, Sean.
Yeah. Um, so we'll wrap up with the tequila cruise here, but where can we find you, and are you what are you accepting athlete wise at this point in terms of how we can work with you?
So at this point, I'm actually not accepting new athletes
Mhm,
for triathlon, but I
mhm,
do have a wait list. And what's interesting is that, I don't know if this is one of those like, they say like you manifest things, or you like, I swear to God, every time an athlete leaves, like for pick a reason, like, I got pregnant, I'm moving away, I accomplished my goal, like whatever it is, every time an athlete leaves, a new one pops up like the next week. It's just the freakiest thing. So at this point, I actually don't have any open spots for triathlon, but that's a revolving door. So it opens up all the time. I'm at Mama Simmons on Instagram, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. I used to have a web page, and then I was like, nobody looks at this, like everybody who comes to me is all word of mouth anyway. But yeah, Mama Simmons on Instagram would be the way, or I'm on Facebook too. But I think, I don't know, those private messages from people you don't know, almost, I don't know, they get hidden.
I don't know.
Like, I don't see them. Like they're, Instagram's the way.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, or Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Mama Simmons, and I check that pretty much every day. So private message.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So, all right. This was really fun. I'm glad that we were able to do this. So thanks, Michelle.
Yeah. You had me thinking a lot there too, which is really good. I appreciate that.
All right. We'll take that. So, all right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.